You've got, of course, me, Joe Wagner, Chris Fat Mario Rubio, but joining us today are Adrian Ochoa and Toby Cochran, and they created a beautiful short film that is getting great acclaim. I'm going to let you guys talk a little bit about it because it is a beautiful film and it's got a great story.
Yeah, so Luki the Lights is about a robot character named Luki living his best life until one day he's diagnosed with the disease ALS. And the story follows how Luki lives out the rest of his life on his term. So it's a story about perseverance and a little bit of hope and having that kind of human connection of, you know, what do you do when the cards are stacked up against you and how do you live out life on your terms? This whole idea came from this beautiful couple in the Netherlands, Sasha and Anjo. Anjo was first diagnosed with ALS about 7 years ago. And when he was first diagnosed, Sasha and Anjo had no idea how to explain this disease to their children, both of which were under the age of 10 at the time. And in order to remedy this, Sasha came up with this idea of creating a robot with light bulbs in the joints. That way, the kids could kind of follow along and fill in the light bulbs. As the disease progresses, the light bulbs kind of go out one by one, and they could follow along like, oh, let's fill in the light bulb in the joint, in the wrist joint, as daddy's, hand goes out or elbow goes out, things like that. And it became a little popular in the Netherlands, and in early 2021, they found our company, Big Grin Productions, to help them bring their story to life.
I'm glad we get to dive into all the love and care that went into this amazing project that you guys have brought.
Well, yeah, and hearing your guys' story, how you guys came to be working together and your independent tracks coming together on creating something I think that will drive tons of awareness. So really, really happy to have you guys on. Proud to bring this out to a broader audience and expose people to it, and looking forward to seeing how much awareness this brings to ALS.
And we also get a little story about going to Shaq's crib.
Oh yeah,
and playing some b-ball. You'll have to tune in for that.
Yeah, please enjoy.
I grew up loving basketball. Like my first dream originally was to go play in the NBA. Even though I was a bit of a short guy, I did my damnedest to try and be able to dunk during high school and stuff like that. And I was pretty close. But I always had a vision like, okay, this is how I'm going to get to the NBA. And then that vision quickly and dream quickly went away. And so when we had the opportunity to go to Shaq's house, I was like, oh shit, this is gonna be the opportunity where I can, play Shaq on his home court. And I had started a basketball team at the game company. So we had our own jerseys and stuff like that. And underneath kind of my suit, if you will, I had my jersey top on. And as he's giving us the tour, I knew where the basketball court was because of the MTV Cribs episode. And I was like, he did his research. I was like, Shaq, can you take us down to the gym? Because through the gym, you got to the basketball court. But in the gym, he had all of the memorabilia, like Larry Bird's jersey and Jordan, all this kind of stuff. And he's like, yeah. He's like, I'll take you through. So we're going through there, and he's like, oh, yeah, and here's the gym. And I was like, cool. And he walks everybody out. And I was like, oh, I need to use the restroom. He's like, oh, it's right there. So they're all in the gym. I go to the restroom, and I take off my shirt, and I've got my jersey on, and I come out, and I grab a basketball. And Shaq's like, oh, bet. Like, let's go. And so we started playing, and then Adrian hopped in. But we were up 3 or 4-0. And every time we kept scoring, Shaq would slap the ball harder and harder. And he's like, oh, I can't let these little
little people
guys beat me on my home court. So he would start to like bump us. It'd be like the lightest bump, but I would just fly. It was so massive. But I ended up hitting a shot on his head right at the end. So we beat him 7-6.
No, I think it was 5-4.
5-4.
5-4. By one.
I bet he loved it. I love that was a risk you were willing to take. You're like, no, man, I got to weasel my way
100%.
into the court with my jersey on. And then, like, the risk is Shaq could be like, get the fuck off my basketball court. But instead, he's like, oh, yeah, it's on.
Yeah.
Dude, that's
and
awesome.
Also for the creative director and the other production manager, I'm sure they were just thinking, oh, my God, what the hell is this kid doing? But I was like, I'm going to live out a dream. And it was an NBA, like it was the Miami Heat's court in his freaking basement. You know what I mean? So I was like, this is an NBA regulated court. And I was like, I'm going to shoot a three.
Shaq was awesome. Like we took photos afterwards.
Yeah.
That's
really awesome.
Okay.
That's what it was. It was the winning shot was that 3-point.
Yeah.
So I do have to say, like, that's something I think people, listening, if you're wondering, like, entrepreneurship, right? What are some of the big parts about it? A big part about it is taking your shot, right?
Yeah.
And not figuratively. Like, I mean, but like really, it is an important thing where people think like, oh no, I might embarrass myself. I might I might offend somebody. I might whatever. It's like, no, you gotta show that you have your own persona, your own drive, and you're gonna get it done. And I think that's what a lot of people in our society are missing because, I mean, you can go back to the school system and whatever else, that it just kind of breeds, monotony and regularity. Rather than free thinking, drive, and work ethic. So I think that's just a little side point, but kind of showing how you were able to differentiate yourself in that moment to become something at a higher level. And probably at first, your colleagues were like, "Oh, this idiot," and then afterwards they're like, "He's kind of like at God level right now."
Yeah, 'cause I mean, that led to a lot of work, right? And collaborating with him and getting.
Yeah, what was the name of that game?
It was Caddyshack, and then
it was a spoof off of the movie, and we called it Caddyshack. And then there was another one called it was a blackjack game called. What was that? Shack-Jack?
Shack-Jack, yeah.
Shack-Jack?
But then we got a cease and desist letter from Warner Brothers, so we had to change the name of the game.
Yeah.
Because from Caddyshack?
Caddyshack, yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
So we called it Shack 9 afterwards.
Oh, man. They took the fun out of it. Besides, I could have resurrected Caddyshack to another level. But people could have been like, oh, you know what? I want to go watch that movie now.
But it was cool because we actually had a mocap Shaquille O'Neal for some of his animations, and they don't make suits big enough for him. But thankfully, we knew somebody at 2K Games that had a suit that would fit him. So
there's 2 in the world.
Yeah, so we got him in a mocap suit, and we got videos of him doing some.
So explain a mocap. I think I have an idea. As to
so
what
mocap is when you put a suit on, and you put all the sensors.
So you get all the motion.
To a studio, and you get all the motions.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
Cool.
So yeah, it's one of those. You've seen them like they use them in like a ton
Marvel
of
movies.
Yeah.
Tons. Yeah.
And so that feeds into some sort of computer system, like, and then CGI, where you're gonna get those actual movements translated into a computer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always like cool to see the acting that goes involved in wearing those suits, and sometimes productions, because a lot of times it's like the actors. Right? I mean, you can't see. All your surroundings. It's all coming in after. So I think it really takes talent to be in that kind of environment and deliver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was cool. Even though it was a little rudimentary, we still were able to have the CG model of Shaq, the cartoon CG model, on the big screen. That way, when he would kind of go into the T-pose and then start dancing, he could kind of look over his shoulder and see the digital version of himself. And that helped him as well, because then he could kind of see points of articulation and kind of movement for, the arms and stuff like that, of like what he could do and push and how it would react on the character model.
Maybe I should get in one of those and maybe I could learn how to dance. It's like by seeing myself, be like, no, that doesn't look good. That looks white. Yeah. That's
we got our green screen here. We actually do have a green screen in studio.
You started a TikTok channel.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should, like, because I know we want to get to the core of this stuff, where you guys are at, right now, what you're working on, and I'd love to hear your journey into Luki and the Lights.
Yeah.
And because you guys had started collaborating, and then when did this idea come up, and what was I think maybe you should explain it first.
So 2017, I left the game company, and I told Adrian, in a company-wide email, one day I'm going to hire you again, so be ready. And I went off and started kind of Big Grin 2.0, if you will, and started working, just handling like client vendor status type work. And fast forward to 2021, we received this kind of email from a colleague saying like, hey, you guys should connect with this family in the Netherlands. They're trying to make an animated short film to help tell their story about ALS. And the whole reason why Big Grin even exists and kind of the revamp of it was knowing that animation can be really impactful in somebody's life. A lot of the times animation, is still deemed only for children, but obviously it can be much more than that. It's it's an incredibly powerful medium. And since like Spider-Verse and Arcane and some of these other shows that have come out over the years, I feel like the industry's slowly opening up in Western culture, anyways, slowly opening up to the possibility of like what animation can entail. And then for me, if we're going to make stuff for children, let's just be really intentional with the work that we're making to make an impact on their life. So the clients and the type of projects that we like to take on are stuff that nobody else is doing, nobody else wants to touch, or a client or a person might have a story that they have a story that they want to share with the world, and utilize animation for that. So when we met Sasha and Anya and we heard their story for the first time, their mission essentially aligned with our mission. And we had our first Zoom call with them, I think late February 21 or in March 2021. And that's kind of how things got started with them.
And they were based out of the Netherlands as well.
Yeah.
And had no idea about animation. They just were like, they shared their story, which I can roll into here if you guys want. But
yeah, so they wanted to convey non-verbally the really focusing on ALS and bringing awareness to ALS. Was that the intention? Yeah. The core. Okay.
They had created this cute little robot character that had kind of become the unofficial mascot of the Netherlands for ALS. So this was the original design from Sasha and Anyo. And Anyo used to do a lot of things with his hands. Mm-hmm. He would build all the furniture in the house, and he helped with the 3D prototype of the character Luki. So they were raising money and going to schools and stuff like that. And Sasha used to blog, and her blog became pretty popular. So that was a couple of years lead up to 2021. And then by the time they met us in the first call, Anyo was like, look, I want to, both of them were like, we raised some money. We want to make an 18-minute Pixar level short film. And we're told you guys can help us do that. And I said, well, how much money do you have? Because this this stuff is not, it's not cheap. It's very expensive. And like 18 minutes of animation doing something indie is very, very difficult. But in that first call, Anya was like, look, I want this film to be, it's got to be educational. It's got to be medically accurate. It has to have no known language, has to have worldwide appeal, and it has to be entertaining. And the very last thing he added to that, he's like, I want it to be Oscar worthy. And I was like, oh my God.
No big aspirations at all. That's like,
whatever, dude. These guys just beat Shaq in a b-ball game, dude. They can do anything.
I know, but you like get that hit list, and it's like we pretty much won everything, and we're gonna be on a real tight budget.
Yeah, exactly.
But just to give some background in terms of how Luki came about, so when Anya was 36, he got diagnosed with ALS, and they didn't know how to explain to their kids what the disease was. So Sasha, as an illustrator, she created Luki and put the light bulbs on the joints. So as Anyo's disease progressed, the kids could follow along and kind of darken the light bulbs.
Yeah.
Okay, I love knowing that context. That's great. So that makes a lot of sense. Because I was going to ask where the robot, the inspiration for characterizing ALS came into being a robot. So that's a good way to do it.
Yeah.
And they had young kids.
Yeah, they did, or they do. Yeah.
And so what I found in that film was that no language, like you said. It shows emotion, but it's something that can be enjoyed by all age ranges. Like you could sit a 2-year-old in front of it or an 80-year-old, and everybody's gonna understand it.
Probably one of the best reviews we got of the film is it takes a robot to humanize this disease.
That is funny, but yeah, that's true. Very true. Mm-hmm. I think people are probably now, as they're listening, going like, okay, now I want to see this film. It turned out to not be 18 minutes. It was a little shorter than that.
No. Yeah, one of the things that we promised them, because this was their first time working in animation, a lot of people, general public, I don't think realizes the amount of effort and time that animation takes. Like a big studio film will take anywhere between 5 to 7 years. And, the last Spider-Man film had 1,000 artists on that film. It's essentially a small little town or army.
Yeah.
And so we help a lot of our clients. We just hold their hand. We walk them through the process. We help them. We help educate them. So we had to educate them on top of essentially gaining their trust to help them shepherd their story, because they gave us a pretty decent outline of what they were thinking that they wanted to do. And what I promised them initially with their first round of funds was like, we can storyboard this outline, and we're gonna see the issues in the story that are gonna come up, and how and where we need to change the story to actually make it entertaining and make it an actual solid story. And we'll also do some visual development to figure out the design of Luki and the world, and what kind of world that Luki lives in. Because there was things to the character as well, like, even though, and this was like their third baby, so Sasha initially was very against changing the design, because they've lived with this character for so many years, and rightfully so. But there were certain aspects to the character that were prohibitive for performance and things like that, where we if the character raises his arm up and there's a giant light bulb sticking up here, it's going to go into the CG mesh of the bottom of the head, or it's going to limit the range of motion and stuff like that. So we had to kind of streamline and figure out what to do. So fortunately, my favorite production designer / character designer in the world was available, Marie Thorhag, and she's in Denmark, and her and I pretty much, I think we drew 42 different versions of Luki in just about 2.5 weeks to try and figure out like what Luki's going to look like and things like that. So we were just hitting the drawing board pretty hard, trying to find something that was still respecting the old design, but also something that was a little bit unique, and creating the design language to help us be a springboard for the rest of the characters in the short.
Well, I think it was beautifully translated.
Yeah.
Like being able to see the model there, and you just kind of describing all the things you had to take into account, and how Luki evolved. I'm sure that they were, I would think, very happy with how it came out.
Yeah, I think that they grew to really enjoy the design eventually. We kept like the face very, very similar. It's like almost 1-to-1 from Sasha's original design. So that was nice.
So I was going to say, so as people are probably looking up Luki and the Lights now and wanting to know what this is all about, and understanding the story, where it came from, and all that, can you just kind of do the highlight on some of the critical acclaim that it's gotten, so people can have a reference point?
Yeah, and to share with your audience just kind of high level, Luki and the Lights is an animated short film, and its ultimate goal and intention is to help raise further awareness for the disease ALS, or MND, known around the world. And it's about this robot character named Luki living his best life until one day he's diagnosed with the disease ALS. And the story follows how he decides to live out the rest of his life on his terms. And we have been fortunate enough to screen and be part of some really major festivals this year. Some highlights for us would be Anamayo, Tribeca. We were one of 6 films at Tribeca, over 8,000 submissions. That's just absurd.
Thank you, Whoopi Goldberg.
Yeah,
thank you, Whoopi Goldberg. And we got into Holly Shorts. We're in I think we're pushing 75 festivals now. We've been accepted into 14 Academy accredited film festivals, and we've won 23 festivals, and a majority of the wins are all audience awards or grand jury. And we haven't won any grand juries at the Academy festivals, and that's okay, because we've been winning audience awards, which I actually prefer, because the proof's in the pudding. The audience is going to pay for the movie, that your ticket at the end of the day, and we've made something that audiences are resonating with. And some of the audience votes have come directly from children. So some of these audience awards are from children.
That movie, I want to say though too, it made my eyes sweat It was so impactful, and I think also it's given me a chance to even kind of open my mind up and with speaking with you guys and kind of learning more. I think you touched on a good point too, Toby, about this being kind of one of the underfunded diseases, one of the most out there. So I think this voice is really great to have out there. And, I think there's over 30,000 in the U.S. affected by this disease. But I think what's another important thing to note about this story is, as I was reading it, is your creative team. So I also thought it was really interesting how you mentioned that it's worldwide. Right, so you have like 117 artists that you're working with through 17 countries, and a lot of these people are directly affected by this, right? That they have family members and stuff. And if you guys want to share anything on this, or
my grandfather passed away of ALS in 1994, and when he got diagnosed, I remember he was having issues swallowing, and it turns out that is probably one of the most aggressive forms of ALS you could have. So by the time he got diagnosed, within the year, he had passed away. And I just remember my mom who... so one thing we've learned about ALS is that when someone gets diagnosed, the majority of the time, it's family members or kids that become the caretakers of the person afflicted with ALS. That happened with my family. So when my grandfather got diagnosed, it was my mom and my grandma and my aunts and my uncles. They were all kind of taking care of him. And I remember my mom saying, because we didn't really know what ALS was at the time. A lot of people know it as Lou Gehrig's disease.
Yeah.
So I remember my mom saying that he is slowly losing movement in his body, but his mind is very active. And I remember towards the end, like you could see it in his eyes. He wanted to communicate with you. He wanted to talk to you. He wanted to do things, but his body wouldn't let him.
Yeah. Jeez.
And he progressed from being very active to being in a wheelchair.
And that was a 1 year for that form of ALS. That was a 1 year from diagnosis to passing.
Yes.
Jeez. Wow. That's
So
wildly fast.
And when Anyo got diagnosed, they had given him 3 to 5 years, and fortunately, he was able to live up to 7 years after being diagnosed.
Wow. Jeez. And now I know there's technologies out there now that help keep your brain able to communicate and convey messages when you get to a very, bad state, where you're physically incapacitated. Yeah. But some of those technologies, it's amazing to see how fast they've evolved.
Yeah.
Because that I think that's going to help a ton for the end of life.
Yeah, I feel like even though Elon Musk gets a bad rap in certain regards, I feel like his Neuralink company is going to be a huge component to help patients that have been affected as well, just because, now they're going to be able to utilize. I mean, you just learning from Anyo and researching, super active man, ex-military, going on lots of hikes. Like I said, he was this craftsman, DIY kind of dude. Then he's confined to this chair and his body, and he's just kind of trapped inside. And then the amount of calories, which I didn't know, that somebody can burn is actually higher because their mind is just so active and just moving at 1,000 miles a minute that he's just like, there's so many things he wants to do or say and things like that, but they're just trapped. And like the other thing too is he used to love playing Dungeons and Dragons, so that was something he would end up watching a lot of Dungeons and Dragons shows and stuff like that on YouTube, just to help kind of pass time and enjoy that sort of stuff.
As you look to the future and seeing the impact that this film has had, what's in the pipeline? I mean, is this a, I don't want to call it niche, but is this kind of a opportunity for you guys to continue to bring awareness to things through this similar methodology? Is that something you're looking at, or are you guys looking still, or broader picture than that?
Little both. I would say this short could easily be turned into a series. It's just whether or not a production studio or network essentially wants to take that kind of risk. I think it would be great to highlight a main character with a disability like this. Apple streaming recently did something with a little little deaf girl called El Defo that was amazing. So I definitely think that there could be something there to help expand upon and do like a limited series run. But that's not going to be really up to us. I do think that this film can help raise further awareness for the disease. Now it's giving parents and children access to have a conversation around this. And then the other great thing is like Luki's story does not end with the short film. People can go to one of the foundations, Global Neuro Eye Care, who owns Luki, and follow up with more information. Dr. Melinda Kavanaugh, who's the founder of the foundation, she's created additional educational material, and her foundation is like the only foundation that has really done this. Before her and before Luki, there was nothing, like no materials for parents and kids to find information about like what the hell this disease does. So this is the very first time this is been done. But people can go to her site and find educational materials. We've created a activity book, a coloring book, and I know that there's going to be a lot more things along the way. And we're going to live out and honor Anya's dream by making a run for the Oscars. As crazy as that sounds, we've been we're qualified to be considered for the Oscars, and we're currently in the kind of portal, if you will, for voting members. And right now we're going to try and figure out how to put a campaign together. So people can go to the website of globalneuroeyecare.org and they can donate, and a small percentage is going to go to us to help honor Anya's message. And really, we feel like by this opportunity, like the opportunity is so big to help spread awareness at this scale, and also help the foundations, like allow people to learn about the foundations and the great work that they're doing. Mm-hmm. Because if you think about it, the last time ALS was really in kind of the zeitgeist of people's minds was the Ice Bucket Challenge. But that was 10 years ago now.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people had no idea what they were doing. They were just doing it.
Yeah, it was just something, yeah.
So now there's Luki, and I feel like Luki's got a much longer runway until hopefully one day some kid watches this short and gets inspired to find a cure, and Luki will no longer be needed at that point.
Mm-hmm. And I know there's a number of foundations, and there's one that is actually related to our industry, and I believe it's Larry Ruvo, out of Nevada, out of Las Vegas. And he's got a foundation. I think his father had ALS, but I know that they've done a lot for bringing in funds to help with just figuring out how to better diagnose and manage this disease. So I know there's a lot out there, but I still think there's not near enough.
Unfortunately, there's not, and luckily, we're thankful for the ALS Association helping us out as well. So they've partnered up with Global Neuro Eye Care, and they from the beginning they loved what we were doing, and part of Anyo and Sasha's mission as well. And there's all kinds of great foundations out there, and they're all trying to just inch forward as much as possible, just try and help out families and people navigate this terrible disease.
I mean, I could imagine taking any of these, like really any disease out there, but especially any of the degenerative diseases, and being able to convey them through nonverbal animation. I could see that as being kind of a tool used across the world, right? So it's whether it's in school, you're in health class, getting people acquainted with it, especially in the short time frame where it's like, hey, we're going through this process, and to have a character or similar characters, but conveyed differently, because obviously the light bulbs convey, I think, very well what the degenerative nature of ALS is. But you go into other diseases, and what might that look like? How might you characterize that so that anybody of any socioeconomic status, any culture, any language could understand?
If this were to be turned into a series and just spitballing right now, that could be like the whole series. Like it could be a world. I mean, it might be a little sad, but it would be a world of different robot characters helping depict, all of these sort of neurological diseases and things like that.
Just an idea, because then you could bring it full circle back to your youth. And all of them could band together to create like a superhero troupe.
There you go.
That's it. You start with these independent things, and then it's like, they all come together, and they're,
like Voltron.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, heck yeah.
Anyways, that's my contribution for the day.
And I gotta say, I mean, what an accomplishment, because I feel it just looks so like it would be so hard to do. First of all, short film, I feel like that's hard in itself, because you really got to like capture your audience and hold them there. And you guys are like a little over 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then I thought it was really cool that you chose to do no dialogue, and keep it on sound, which correct me if I'm wrong, that was intentional for the reason for it to be worldwide.
Correct.
You wanted to reach as many people as you could. And then also what I just want to say, what I really enjoyed, and if you want to speak upon it, was that I don't know how you did it, because I got lost in your world when I watched it, but it was just so much about friendship. There was romantic love. It was inspiring by his rise to, I don't want to give away too much, but you know what I mean? But like just how he kept striving to make the best of the cards he was dealt, mm-hmm. and I think that was a really inspirational part of it. Was that in that story process, was that the original story was all kind of incorporating that already? Did you guys collaborate more to add any more elements to it?
We did. The script was, I remember the original script was kind of repetitive. I remember, Toby, where it was kind of like, it felt like Groundhog's Day, where it was very repetitive. So Toby took a pass and like...
Luki had a flat line of character, like there's no character arc. It was just like, this thing happens, this thing happens, this thing happens. And there was no emotion, like obviously with a good story, you need some tension and all that good stuff and have our ups and downs. And it was just kind of flat across the board.
Yeah. So the first one, we looked at it and we're like, this isn't working. So then we try to go back and trim it and make it more, like Toby said, give it an arc and give it a emotional feel.
Yes.
A lot of moving parts.
Yeah. Chris, to your point, it was incredibly difficult because, like Adrian shared, his grandfather passed away within a year. And some people, could be 6 months to a year to 5 years to 10, or somebody like Stephen Hawking who's lived with it his whole life. And it's like, how do you take this disease that can have this kind of wide of a range and debilitate and take somebody's life away, but put it into like a short 10-minute thing, So that was one of the hardest things to do, on top of all the other hard things to do. But that was hard, and I just hope, and I do feel proud that we honored the ALS and M&D community in that regard. And obviously, there's a lot of other things that we could have added or put in, but we tried our best to make sure that we could honor everybody and feel seen and feel recognized, and then also allow people that have never experienced this disease, but maybe they had a loved one pass away from cancer or have become a caretaker in that regard. Mm-hmm. I wanted to make sure that we navigated that delicately as well to honor people that have had that experience.
Mm-hmm. Great job on it. It's a great one. We hope you have even more success in getting more viewership on it. So
thank you.
That's awesome.
And where can people, if you guys want to say like where they can watch Luki the Lights? I know that we got to see it before, but just how to access it, what to look forward to for that, because I think it would be great encourage people to watch this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're still wrapping up a few festivals.
Okay.
So that's the common way to go. You run through the festivals, get some awareness of it, and then you'll put it on a platform, or
yes.
will this be like a Netflix kind of thing, possibly?
So anybody that's affected by this disease can go to globalneuroycare.org and sign up and hopefully donate. If the film resonates with them, right? But they can sign up to Melinda's foundation and they can get access to the film. Because that was one of the important things, is we didn't want to kind of isolate the community. And then the film is behind that kind of paid wall, if you will, just an email sign up, to allow us to continue our festival run. Because if you have a film that's freely available online or YouTube or Vimeo or whatever, you're not allowed to play in that festival. And then same for Oscar consideration and stuff like that. But we are looking into doing a wider release on YouTube, probably, I would say probably later in the year, around December or something. We're trying to figure out the dates, but that would open up, accessibility even more so at that point.
All right.
You've only had like 70 festivals? Like
75?
Yeah.
Well, that's great, guys.
So, can I ask? Are you at liberty to say roughly, with a level of execution like what you did with Luki and the Lights, a range per minute cost wise to get something like this done?
I can share high level, like a big studio. Typically, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Adrian. Big studio, it's about $1.5 million to $2 million per minute.
Oh my God!
And
the last I heard was like for a big studio film was like $1 million a minute. So like a Pixar film is like I think like Lightyear was like 200 and some over 200 million to make.
Wow.
Yeah.
$1 million
Yeah,
a minute?
but
I call it $1 million plus a minute for.
Yeah, but we're a fraction of that.
Well, yeah, but I think people have no idea about what the cost of animation is,
good.
and the size of the team that is involved, and the level of execution. If you're just doing something really simple, I'm sure it's much easier. If you're not hiring actors, that's probably cutting a huge swath of dollars out of it too.
Yeah, plus
but
overhead and other expenses. Studio, yeah.
Yeah, but still, it's not cheap to have. You said over 110 artists working on this.
100 artists, and we were lucky because we were signing people up to join us in this endeavor, but we didn't have the funds, and it was kind of based on us pulling, our contacts and like having this one kind of card to play of people that I've wanted to work with for almost 20 years, and then volunteers coming in that had heard about us making an ALS short, but they had, a family member or a friend that had passed away from it. They just wanted to contribute, to a shot or something like that. So that's why the team was so big. And also we had this crazy deadline that we needed to get the damn film done before Anyo passed away. So, how do we do that without having the financial resources and stuff like that? If we've got, 60 shots to animate and we've only got 10 animators, how can we speed that up? Let's put some more animators on there. But in order to do that, we need to make sure that all the animators are at a high caliber, high quality, A player only type mindset. And it just took a lot of time.
And then we also had some great sponsors too, and I think because of the subject matter, they were more willing to help us. So shout out to Epic and Perforce and Sync Sketch and AWS, Animbot, Monday.com.
Well, you guys brought it all together, made it happen, created something beautiful, and you persevered. I mean, that takes a lot to push through all of those challenges and all the unknowns. I think that's a big part of it too, right? Like, you had a vision, and you developed it to a point where you just needed to actually, get pen to paper, so to speak. But and finally you guys were able to get a team together around you and get this thing done, and that's an amazing story. So congratulations on that, and wish you the most success and exposure of this film.
Thank you so much.
For sure.
And thank you for helping us shine a light on this film and the subject matter by being on your podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you guys for being here. All right, cheers.
All right, thank you, guys. We're all right. So we do the peace.
Oh, yeah, he does the peace. Yeah, that's it. Do you always do it backwards? Peace. All right, cheers. Thanks.
Cheers.